Hello everybody, Russ of Aquarimax here. It is Tuesday, 5:30 Mountain Time, and so it's time to do a live stream. It looks like some of you are already here. Let's see, Roger's Aquarium. Yes, I am here. Thank you, Roger's Aquarium, for joining us. It seems like, was it you who was saying the other day that you missed one and you wanted to make sure you caught the next one? Looks like you did. So, if that was you, it may have been another Roger. Let's see. All right, well, as you can see, I've got Twilly. My little friend has joined me today. Last time I didn't have any creatures in the live stream. That was kind of sad, so I decided to bring Twilly along as my sidekick as we get rolling today. A lot of interesting things are going on. One thing that I'm really excited about is the new Aquarimax t-shirt. I will make sure to put a link in my next Normal Friday video. I'll probably put one on the end of this video too if I remember to do so. Gordius, hello, and Jay's Aquatics. Hey, your first time to watch any live stream? Well, congratulations. Glad you're joining the wave of the future, or the wave of the present, or whatever it is. I'm glad you're joining us for this live stream, and I'm flattered that this is your first live stream. That's pretty cool. Mutzilla, hello. Thanks for jumping in. Robert, is it Gear, or is that how you pronounce it? Robert Gear finally made it to a live stream on time. Excellent. Oh, we got quite a few people in the house. Jamie Bonani, I don't see or hear you. Is my phone acting up? Ooh, let me know. Can anybody else see or hear me? It looks like a lot of people are here. Hopefully you can hear me. Let me know if you can. Camellia Stevens, first live stream as well. Well, thank you for joining us. Glad to hear it. And Potato Derp, hi, you're in the house. Aiden McInnes, hey, hello. Good. Jay's Aquatic says he can hear and see fine, so Jamie, that might be what's going on is your phone. Okay, Roger Nielsen says, I made it. Excellent. And Gordia says, care tips for the Titans. I forgot the scientific name. Yes, I can hear you. Good. Nick Porter, first time live. Thanks for joining us. Aiden McInnes says, loud and clear too. And Efrain Acevedo Jr., I was about to say the same thing about making it on time. Well, I'm glad so many of you did. This has been one of our most successful live streams in such a short period of time. We've already got 5 likes, which is awesome, and 14 people in the house. So the first question I'm going to answer is Gordius' question about care tips for the Titan, and he's referring to Porcellio hoffmannseggi, which are the largest species of isopod that I have, and one of the largest species in the hobby. If you may have noticed on the thumbnail that I have a picture of some of those there. Those are pretty easy to take care of, fortunately. Oh, I'm frozen on the screen, so I hope you can still hear me and everything's still going and it's not glitching out on me. But anyway, some care tips. Well, they do, of course, because they're bigger, they require a larger enclosure. They also like a lot of ventilation. So I have a large cutout in the lid that I have screened over for my Porcellio hoffmannseggi. I have a big piece of cork bark for them to hide under. They love the piece of cork bark. And then a nice substrate, of course, a lot of dry leaves is good. They do like some of their substrate to be pretty dry. So I would recommend making sure you have an area that they can stay fairly dry in, but there's always a moist area that they can go to. So if you think of it like, you know, some reptiles like a leopard gecko where they like to have a humid hide and a dry hide, Porcellio hoffmannseggi is kind of like that. And it works pretty well. That seems to allow them to be breeding and so on. So hopefully that helps. Gordius, and thank you for your question. Dion26 says, does anyone know me here? You should. Nice. You should. I'm nice. I share, subscribe, and watch. Watch videos of all kinds. I here to meet friends and grow. I love fish, by the way. That's good. That's a good place to come if you like fish. Amelia Stevens says, frozen but can hear you. Well, that's disappointing that it's frozen. I'm glad you can still hear me. Okay, everybody's saying that you can hear us. Hopefully that this will, you know, we'll get some video back in a few minutes. I really hope that works. We'll just keep plugging away and see what we get, I guess. Hopefully it won't stay frozen for too long. Potato Derp says, will any bark do or does it have to be cork? It doesn't have to be cork. I like cork because they'll eat a lot of other types of bark. But I would say I've used maple and oak bark a lot for isopods, and that works great too, but they will gradually eat it away. And yeah, the cork is just good because they don't eat it. It's nice and light. If you set it down on them, it's not going to hurt them, and that kind of thing. At least, you know, it's, oh, he's talking. Aiden McInnes says, what is your experience with breeding Armadillidium Montenegro? Hey, Xander. Oh, okay, hold on, everyone. I'm going to have to pause this for just a second. We've got something going on. I hope you can all hold on for just a second, okay? There you are. Let's leave. See ya. All right. Sorry about that, everyone. I am back. Sorry about the delay there. We got an invisible screen for a little while. So I was back with Aiden McInnes' question saying, what is your experience with breeding Armadillidium Montenegro? Well, they are a little bit more challenging than some isopods because they like to be kept pretty warm and they like it dry. So not just dry like Porcelia Hoffman's egg eye. They still need a humid area, of course. They also like it really warm. And so I have found that I keep them above my cricket bin, where some of the heat from the ceramic heat emitter kind of floats up to one area, one side of the enclosure, and that works pretty well. And they're breeding. It took me, I'm not sure how many months I've had them offhand, but I've had them for a few months and recently noticed a monkey in there maybe a month or two ago, and they're growing. So it's working. I've had some success with it, but I haven't kept them long enough to, go through generations, but it's working pretty well. So hopefully that answers your question there. Gordia says, one last thing, food for Porcelia Hoffman's egg eye. Well, you can keep feeding them the same things you would feed other isopods. I give them, of course, a nutritious substrate with lots of ground up oak leaves and maple leaves and things like that, but then bits of vegetables and fruits like bananas, zucchini, sweet potato is a good one, things like that. And also I give them goldfish food pellets, and that seems to be a pretty decent diet. I've also ordered some Ripashi bug burger I'm going to try. That's supposed to be really good for all isopods. So I haven't used it yet, and obviously they'll do well without it, but I'm going to try that as well. All right. Let's see. Jay's Aquatic says, I own mainly aggressive fish, Oscars and other cichlids. I also have reptiles, beardies, Leos, a Chinese water dragon, some frogs, and a few turtles. Okay. So you've got quite an assortment there. That's cool. That's the only ones I guess I have in common with you. We have a Leo and some frogs, but I have had some of those other things too. That's cool. So you get a lot of things that I haven't had a lot of experience with. I mean, I do have I've had other cichlids, and I do have cichlids, but like I've never kept a water dragon or things like that. So that's cool. So, Rosie McLeod says, what dog breeds are good with cats? That's a good question. I've only kept one dog breed. I've only kept a Chesapeake Bay Retriever, so I'm not sure. And I think she was pretty okay with cats specifically, but that's one I don't know, because I've only had one breed of dog. Okay, so Aiden McInnes said, thanks, just bought a few at Repticon months back and was curious. Okay. So Jay's Aquatic says, I'm looking to make a bioactive tent for my Leos. I have seen your video and I'm highly curious. Will my Leo eat any of the isopods? She has a tendency to eat everything. Well, I've seen our Leo chase after isopods a little bit, but what seems to be happening is that they're reproducing in the enclosure, so she may be picking off a few, but there are enough hiding places with the leaf litter and so on in there that they're producing more than are being eaten, I guess, is what I could say. So yeah, she probably will go after a few, and it also depends on the species. If you keep it just really small species and really fast species, you might have more survive than if you're using slower, larger species. So let's see. Potato Derp said, my baby mantid suddenly stopped eating. Is this because they're about to shed their skin? Could very well be. They often do that right before they molt. Are they starting to try to hang upside down from surfaces, like the top of your enclosure and things like that? That would be another indication that they're preparing to molt. Gordius is going to try to keep some isopods. Are you going to try for Porcelia Hoffman's egg eye? That would be cool. Okay. Let's see. Robert Gear says, what kind of springtails would work with Leos? The type that I have with mine, I think there are actually 2 species in there, and they were sold to me as silver springtails. I'm not sure what the species is, but it looks like there's also some Fulsomia candida in there, which is one of the species that I culture for to sell and for live foods and so on. So probably either one would work. They are generally going to stay under the leaf litter quite a bit. You won't see them much unless you dig in the leaf litter or you look right under the water dish. But they do seem to be doing something in there, so. Okay. Oh, Gordius is also planning on keeping some wild species from your backyard. Well, I do that. I captured some Cyclisticus convexus in my backyard a while ago and now have a thriving culture of those. And in the canyon near my house, I collected some Armadillidium vulgaria, the ones with the high yellow, if you've seen my video on the isopods. Oh, it looks like that's what you're going to try to do too. Yeah, that's how I started, and it worked. It took a couple of maybe 2.5 years or something like that before I got any results, but you know, patience is rewarded. All right. Can anybody see me now? Is it working any better? I'm still frozen from my end. I'm just wondering. Jamie Bonetti says, do you have any isopods for sale? I need for tropical setups for tree frogs. I do. I have quite a few species. And it seems like we talked about this at one point. Yeah. Did we talk about Oniscus ocellus because red-eyed tree frogs tend not to eat them? That's a possibility. Or we could go with small species because they tend to ignore small species like that. So. Jay's Aquatic says, well, it was great joining your live stream. I have to get going. It's time to start feeding and such. Have a great evening, and I'll join soon. And still frozen for us. Well, thanks, Jay's Aquatics, for joining us. Hope to see you again soon. And thank you for letting me know that it's still frozen. So I really appreciate those of you who are still here, even though it's frozen. That is a mark of appreciation. I appreciate the fact that you're here, even though it is frozen. So Jamie Bonani says, we did, but I can't remember what you recommended. Well, I would go with either really small dwarf species like dwarf striped or dwarf white, something like that, or one of the larger species that's kind of pokey, like an Oniscus ocellus that your frogs won't eat. Those would be my recommendations. And I do have some dwarf species as well as some of the Oniscus ocellus available, so those are some options. Potato Derp said, I've had both male and female platies for a few months now, and I've heard they breed no matter what the conditions. How come mine aren't breeding? Well, there's a couple things we can think about. Platies do tend to breed pretty readily, and it could be, one thing, they could be breeding and all the fry are getting eaten. That does happen in certain setups. It kind of depends on what you're keeping them with. Are the platies the only fish in there? If you've got predatory fish in there, they may actually be producing lots of young, which turn out to be little tasty snacks. Another thing to think about is the temperature. What temperature do you have them at? If they are at, say 72 degrees, they're going to breed a lot more slowly than they would at 78. So those are a couple of things to think about. Let me know how those things might be affecting your situation. Do you see the females? Do they appear to be gravid? Do they get really, really big? Gordia said, how often do you do these live streams? I'm sort of new. Well, the plan has been to do these every week. I would like to try to do them every Tuesday. I usually have a little slot of time on Tuesdays that kind of works well for me to do them on. So Tuesdays at 5:30 US Mountain Time. But I'm not sure that, lately I haven't been able to do it as often. For a while I was doing it every Tuesday, and things have been kind of crazy. I've had to go and do things, family activities and things like that. Haven't been able to do it as often, but hopefully I can get back into the swing of things, so to speak. I'm glad that I was able to do it today. I'm really excited for some things that have been happening lately. I just reached 7,000 subscribers a couple of days ago, so that's pretty exciting. I've also released a couple of, well, at least I guess just one for now, but I'll be releasing more T-shirts, Aquarimax T-shirts. I've got one with some isopod photos on it with Porcelia Hoffman's egg eye and Armadillidium clugai, which is the Montenegro, and zebra isopods, and then the orange Armadillidium vulgare are on there. And that's kind of fun. So if you go to Teespring and look up Aquarimax, you can see some of the older designs and then this new design. It says isopods do my dirty work at the top, and then it has the isopods, and underneath it says Aquarimax. So I'm kind of excited about that. It was a fun design to do. So is the bird distracting in the background? I'm just wondering, because I can hear him talking right in my ear and I'm fine with it, but I don't want to, distract too much if it's causing problems. I don't know how much the microphone is picking up, so. Okay, Gordia says, no, he's cute, we can leave it. Robert Gear says the same thing. Okay, and so does Roger Nilsson, so sounds okay. Good. Love the bird. Okay, we will keep him here. But I guess I'm still frozen, is that right? Oh, Camellia Stevens says, not distracting, but I'm attempting to figure out what he's saying. Well, I've heard him say a couple of times his name, Twilly, and I've heard him say Budgie. Those are two things he says a lot. But, oh, he just said Budgie again. I don't know if you could hear that. But, all right. So, let's see. So, Roger Gear is saying yes. Does that mean he is distracting? You probably heard that when he said Twilly Budgie just now. Oh, still frozen. Okay, still frozen. That is so sad. I'm going to need to figure out why that happens, because the live stream, when it plays, it replays on the channel, it's not frozen. So it is recording. Oh, no problem. I'm not worried about it. I'm just figuring out what's going on. So it must be strange on your side watching it. I'm not watching it, listening to it like this, but at least it's kind of like a podcast, sort of, but you can participate, right? So. Well, it is really frozen though. I'm wondering if I should cut it short. I'm happy to keep going if you want me to, but oh, Gordia says, did he do a raspberry? Yeah, he does do a kind of a raspberry sound. He makes some really funny noises. He has a particular sound he makes if you do a raspberry to him that he likes to do back. But you have to see that on camera. I'd have to do that sometime when you can actually see what's going. Okay, saying keep going please, and I'm happy to do so. Let me see what else is going on. If you've seen any footage of my Endlers livebearers, they're in a few of my videos so far. I got into blue star Endlers a few months ago. Started out with a couple of, a group from LR Brett's Aquatics, and they were just like, I don't know, maybe 6 or 8 adults and a number of fry, and now I have tons of them. I've got lots of them, lots of mature males that look really cool. I love the color. And so I'll be doing an update video on those pretty soon. Really excited about that. So watch this space for that kind of thing. They are breeding like crazy. I'm going to have to start selling some. My hope is that I'm going to set up, a 29-gallon really soon and get some blue star endlers going in there as kind of a grow out tank, and also keep some blue dream or blue velvet shrimp in there. Potato Derp says, Gary's in the tank, and that's his betta, but he refuses to eat anything other than slow-moving worm-like creatures. He wouldn't eat baby platies. It's about 37 degrees Celsius in the tank. 37 degrees Celsius. Okay, I'm going to have to convert that in my head. I'm probably not very good at doing that right now. Okay, but interesting. So he really wouldn't chase the baby platies. Interesting. He's an interesting fish. He seems very particular for a betta. Robert Gear says, about endlers, how do they differ from guppies? Well, they're very similar and can hybridize with them, but they're different in several ways. One is that their body is more, kind of a more slender body type, and they tend to be a little bit different in their behaviors. They have fewer young at a time. They tend to be schoolers more than guppies, and they tend to have maybe more interest in picking algae off of things. Guppies will do that some, but they tend to do it more. And their colors are just out of this world compared to most guppies. They're amazing. So there's a few differences. Hopefully that helps explain a few of the differences, but I am amazed by them. I kept guppies for decades and enjoyed them a lot, but these endlers are amazing. Roger Nilsson said I had red neon, so red neon endlers. One pair became 200. Yeah, I can believe it. They're breeding so fast. And then Camilla Stevens says, isn't that too warm at Potato Derp? You know, I was wondering that myself when I thought 37. I wasn't sure what it is because I can't convert it in my head while I'm trying to read all these comments, but it might be a little bit too warm. Oh, 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, I see. 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Yeah, that might be a little too warm. If you want good breeding. I mean, they'll probably survive it just fine, but I don't know. I might tone it down just a little bit. You do like 77, 78, you'll probably do better. Even though I think they can survive at that without too much problem. Greg Whittington says, anything new with the dart frogs? Future plans with the vivariums? Well, the dart frogs, for the moment, nothing new, but something on the horizon. My next big project I have determined is going to be to replace my ancient vivarium, which is about 6 years old, and I'm probably going to upgrade it in size too. I'm going to try for a 29 gallon because they're in a 20 high right now, and I think it's a little small, and there are limited options what you can do with the background. So I have been saving up money to put something together there. I'm probably going to be working with NE Herp, New England Herpeticulture, because I worked with them before and they're great. They've always helped me out. So I'm going to try to get something set up there. I can still use the same light fixture, and I can do, you know, probably port over some of the plants and things like that. I'll probably reuse the drainage layer as well, and microfauna as much as possible. So there are a lot of things I can port over to the new vivarium, but I really want to build a good background. When I built this was, you know, like 6-ish years ago, and I really hadn't done any vivarium building. Well, I can't say I hadn't done any, but I hadn't done a lot of vivarium building in the style of dart frog vivarium building, let's say that, because I had done a lot of vivariums as a kid even, but not of that style. So it was a new experience for me. I tried a few things that I wish I hadn't tried. For example, I read about doing the background with Great Stuff foam, which most people do, but then covering it with Gorilla Glue instead of silicone. And that worked okay at first, but then it just started kind of molting off. So I really wish I hadn't done that, and so I'm going to be doing it the correct way this time. And since then, I haven't used Great Stuff backgrounds in my vivariums. I've been doing the cork bark background or the forest tile backgrounds, which I like. I think they're great. But I want to do a more 3D background basically for this one, so I will be doing that instead. And looking forward to doing that as soon as the weather warms up a little bit, because I want to do the curing of the silicone out in the garage. I don't want to do it in the house. And I will have to wait until it warms up a little bit, ideally, to be able to do that. So let's see. Potato Derp says, what is the best way to stop melanogaster fruit flies from escaping during feeding? It's tricky, especially what kind of melanogaster fruit flies? Do you have the Turkish gliders or the wingless, or what kind are you keeping? One thing you can do is, if you're not using a flighted, I'm assuming you're not using a flighted type of fruit fly, is you can put them in the fridge for a couple minutes. You have to be careful, don't do it for too long or you can kill them, but it'll slow them down, and then that can help. And then as they warm back up, they will do better. Does anyone here know how to get a lovebird to warm up to people? Well, I haven't worked specifically with lovebirds, but I have worked with various, you know, parrot-like birds. I've worked with budgies and cockatiels and cockatoos and, you know, some other birds. And I would highly suggest clicker training. You can do some amazing things with clicker training. This particular bird is my daughter's bird, and she's done some clicker training with him, but I had my own budgie a few years ago, did some clicker training with him, and I got him speaking on command. He was on a recall signal, so whenever I wanted him to come to me, all I had to do was call him, and he would come straight to me. And the reason why I mention it in your situation where you need the lovebird to warm up to people is because clicker training will often change the attitude of a bird that is uncomfortable around people, and it will get excited about it. There's a book called, I think it's called Clicker Training for Birds, and I've read it. I own it, actually. Great book. and can help with a lot of things like that. So I would say, if you haven't tried that, look it up. It's awesome. I've clicker trained all kinds of things: rats, birds, fish. It's amazing what you can do with it. Okay. So, Camellia Stevens says, I have been working on a 55-gallon for morning geckos and possibly dart frogs. Wow. I would love to have a 55-gallon for that. That sounds awesome. I don't think you can go too big. The biggest dart frog vivarium I ever saw, I think, was at the Oakland Zoo in California. It was gigantic. I have no idea of the size right now, but it had various species of dart frog, and it was probably half as wide as my living room. It was amazing. So I can imagine the fun it would be to do a 55. The only thing I would say is that morning geckos and dart frogs, finding that right balance where the humidity level is high enough for the dart frogs and low enough for the morning geckos to be ideal is a little tricky, because morning geckos don't like it dry per se, but they do like it drier a little bit than dart frogs. Or I shouldn't say it's necessarily that they want it drier, they just like a higher amount of ventilation than dart frogs usually get. So something you want to think about balancing. But okay, Potato Drip has the gliders. Yeah, then you can do the fridge. Oh, and Zero Cool Ninja 88 says, "What's up? Great content. Congrats on your success." Thank you. I'm pretty excited about it. Camellia Stevens says, "I am trying to figure out the ventilation." Yeah, that is really a tricky business. But there's a good thread on Dendroboard about it, on putting, basically you're making a little, using screen, for like a screen window. You use the siding, or whatever you'd call it, the borders, and you cut it to fit, and you put like very fine, like a chiffon type of fabric in there, and do that. So there's a pretty cool thread on that. That might help. Gordia says, where did you get your P. Hoffman's egg eye? I got them from captiveisopoda.com. His name's Alan, the guy who runs it, and he's got all kinds of great isopods. I think he's based in Georgia, somewhere in the southeast. I'm pretty sure it's Georgia. So it is the U.S., and that species in the U.S. is along with a lot of other Spanish species that he has, spectacular ones. So highly recommend checking him out. TMPS says, "Hey Aquarimax, love your stuff." Well, thank you. I'm really happy that you're here. Thanks for joining us. And Zero Cool Ninja 88 says, "Wait, is this only audio? Your face is frozen." Unfortunately, yeah. It froze about, I don't know, 3 to 5 minutes into it. And TMPS, yeah, you're right. Captive Isopoda. And Down the Wormhole says, "Made it. Good to see you." Yeah, welcome back. Good to see you too. And Gordia says, "Oh, hey, that's where I live." Oh, you might be able to do a local pickup then, possibly. If you're not too far away. That would be awesome. Save on shipping. Okay, Zerkul says, "Oh, okay, then I just got home from work and still caught the live stream." Excellent. I guess we're getting near the end, but I'm glad everybody has decided to join us today. I'm really excited that even with it being frozen, we still have good participation. TMPS says, "I wish I didn't live in Canada. I have to order like $250 of stuff from Captive Isopoda before they even consider shipping to me." Yeah, shipping to Canada does get expensive. That's true. That's sad. I kind of know where you're coming from, though, because I used to live in Hawaii, and getting things shipped there is really tough. Getting creatures shipped there is basically impossible. Plants you can sometimes do, aquarium plants, but getting creatures shipped there. I did get bettas shipped there once, and that worked. But, trying to get live foods there, no, don't even try. Although there's some that you can, some you can do. Okay. Robert Gear says, "Any plant recommendations for a 3-gallon betta tank?" You know what one I'm having fun with right now is Cryptocorin parva, a really short-growing, very slow-growing Cryptocorin that would be great for that. It would make a good carpet plant for a tank like that because it's kind of small. And it stays small, so that would be really cool. Some other possibilities for that, tank like that, of course, you could do some of the smaller Anubias. They would be great in there. And any moss, basically. The only thing is that moss kind of one of the mosses that can stand warmer temperatures because you're doing a betta. So something like Taiwan moss, something that'll actually grow at warmer temperatures is what I mean. Most of them can survive it, but some of them won't grow very fast. But those are some options. Potato Derp says, I accidentally bred a large colony of tubifex worms in the substrate of my 60-gallon tank. It provides the nice occasional snack for my fish. If you put some Corydoras or something in there, or do you have Corydoras in there? I can't remember. I remember you talking about Corydoras, but I'm not sure if they were in that tank or not. Okay. And Zercool Ninja 88 says, just because it's frozen doesn't mean we can't listen to all this great knowledge for us new to the hobby. Well, thank you. I'm glad. All right, Gordius is back. I hope you had an interesting visit on the website and that you maybe can order something from it because it's a cool place. Jamie Bonani says, I have had success with using the weed block fabric. Gives the ventilation but keeps everything else out. That is an excellent idea. Weed block fabric. Nothing's going to crawl through that. I mean, yeah, nothing, no insect or anything like that's going to get through it. So that's a great idea. Potato Derp says, Gary loves tubifex worms. I bet he does. That's what you're saying, that he loves small worm-like things. TMPS says, I'm looking to make a terrarium with some P. Hoffman's egg eye or P. expansus isopods, but I think I'll just have to wait until I get my next job. Yeah, they're expensive. I paid about $12 a piece for my P. Hoffman's egg eye, which was a big investment because I knew I'd be able to breed them and recover the costs. But yeah, it was kind of a lot of money up front. Okay, Potato Derp says, I do have Corydoras in there, and I bet they have fun rooting them out too. Gordia says, yeah, it has a really nice look. Maybe I'll order soon. Yeah, and he's always getting new stuff in. He's got some really cool stuff. If you've never looked up Ducky isopods or rubber ducky isopods, try them. Try looking them up. They're pretty cool. They're from the Southeast Asia somewhere, I think Thailand, and they are amazing. So Down the Wormhole says, how many budgies, hamsters? Well, right now we only have one budgie, but in my lifetime I've had, I don't know exactly how many, maybe half a dozen or something like that. I could go through and count them. But hamsters, I used to breed hamsters, so I had quite a few. So yeah, I had quite a few hamsters over the years. I haven't had hamsters for many years now. I think the last time I had hamsters I was probably about 15 or 16, but kept them for quite a few years. More recently I've had rats. I really enjoy rats. Our kids all had pet rats, and I've had pet rats, and I've had all kinds of pets. You know, my channel generally focuses on aquarium and vivarium pets, but I've actually had quite a few others as well that don't fit in that category. I used to breed zebra finches, for example, things like that. Jamie Bonani says, do you have those Ducky isopods? Not yet, but I will be getting them eventually, I'm sure. It's only a matter of time. But right now they're about $20 a piece, so rather prohibitive. TMPS says there's some zebra isopods on... Ooh. There's some... Where are we? Oh, there's some zebra isopods on Kijiji that I'm thinking of getting in the meantime, though, to be honest. Yes. Oh, those are great. Those are one of my absolute favorite species, and they do really well. And it says duckies are cute. They are. They're one of the cutest isopods. They remind people of rubber duckies, which is where they get their name. So if you haven't checked them out, please do. Oh, and thanks for all the likes, anyone. If you haven't clicked the like button and you would like to, this would be a great thing to help keep the live streams coming. The more likes I get, the happier YouTube is with my channel. Oh, well, we got some quick action there on the like button. Thank you. Excellent. Zercool Ninja 88 says, is there anything I can do to speed up the process of the zebra pillbugs to reproduce? Or are they slow to reproduce? I think I still have like 12 with 3 small ones. Well, if you have a nice nutritious substrate, you make sure you have a damp spot, but there's also some rather dry places in there. Plenty of hiding places, especially bark. Cork bark is great. Will help. It occurs to me, I think I ordered mine when I first got mine in June, and they didn't really start breeding in November, but once they did, they just took off and went crazy, and then I sold lots and lots of them. I sold hundreds of them, and now I have fewer, but they're reproducing again, but not like they were before. So they seem to go in boom or bust cycles to some extent. I'm not sure why, but if you have them starting to breed, that's a good sign. You'll probably get more breeding soon. So also make sure they get enough food, but don't leave any uneaten food in there, but make sure they get enough food with some high protein stuff. That'll help. Down the Wormhole said, did you feed your hamsters mealworms? I read that someplace, had me curious. I do remember feeding my hamsters live foods occasionally. I think I gave them some crickets and grasshoppers that I would catch in the backyard, which I wouldn't necessarily recommend doing now with all the pesticides that are around, but I think I did that a couple of times. And I think I did give them mealworms as well, because I bred mealworms at the time. And yeah, an occasional insect is a natural food item for a hamster. Not like you want to, you know, base their diet on insects, of course, but an occasional insect is good for them and something they would likely eat in the wild. Thanks for the likes, everyone. TMPS and Gordius, and everyone else who liked. They're mentioning specifically that they were hitting the like button. So thanks to everyone who did. And Zercool also says, would you ever do a collaboration video with a fan later down the line? Oh, certainly, I'm open to that. Yeah, I have done collaborations. I used to do collaborations on the podcast when I did the podcast, and I would, yeah, I'm totally open to it. I think it's a good thing to do. It's good for everybody. And especially one thing that I would love to do is do a collaboration with a fan who keeps something that I don't, because that's a good way to, you know, broaden the scope of the channel. Keeps an aquarium or vivarium pet that I don't have. So that would definitely be a draw for me, but I'm open to doing various kinds of collaborations. Potato Derp says, there's this breeding population of small snails in the 60-gallon tank. They breed like mice. The platies like to nibble on the snail eggs, but that doesn't stop new snails from hatching every day. Yeah, I know how that goes. Do you know what kind of snails they are? Are they like the football-shaped little pond snails? TMPS says, I wanted to get the isopod substrate from bugs in cyberspace, but they don't ship to Canada. Oh, that's sad. Not even the substrate, huh? I wish there weren't so many regulatory laws between that. I mean, I understand why they exist, and I know there are valuable reasons for it, so don't get me wrong. It's just, sometimes it's frustrating that there are so many difficulties, even with non-living things, to ship between here and Canada. And TMPS says, do you think that any vivarium substrate version 2 would be suitable for isopods? It is, yes. I have isopods on some of it. In my Cresty Gecko vivariums, I use version 2 substrate, and I think in my morning gecko vivarium too, and I've got isopods in there, and they do well on it. So yes. Okay. So, all right. Where am I? Let's see. I think some of these are okay. Robert Gear said, "Potato Dip, what kind of bed did you have?" And Familian like, any thoughts on keeping coastal isopods like Ligia exotica, if you know about them? I have actually done a little research into that. I remember seeing a Ligia species in Florida last time I was out there, and they were pretty cool. I think there's a thread about it on Arachnoboards, and apparently all you have to do is keep, well, this is what the person did, and I can't remember who it was who said this, but basically if they had an Exoterra vivarium and had the styrofoam background in the stock background that comes with it in the back, and then they had, I think it was slightly brackish water, an inch or two deep, and the isopods did great like that. They didn't need to change the water all that often, although they periodically did change the water. I don't even think it was filtered or aerated or anything, and they just kept the water down there and fed them fish food and other things, and they did great. I don't think they were breeding very fast, but they did all right. So I think they would be an interesting species to keep. They're really, really big, and they have long uropods like Porcellia hoffmannseggi, but they are also very fast, incredibly fast. I caught a few when I was in Florida just to look at them, and catching them was an amazing experience. They run about as fast as like roaches. They're fast. Very interesting creatures. Okay, Pat was patted said, what is the maintenance for vivarium drainage layers? Well, the main thing is to avoid getting the water too high. If the water in the drainage layer, you know, you want to keep it. So it's approximately 3/4 of an inch to an inch deep, depending on the depth of your drainage layer. But you don't want it to touch the substrate layer. So keeping it low enough and high enough is basically the idea. You don't want it too low or too high. And one of the best things to do to maintain that is to put a standpipe in, which is basically a capped length of PVC that goes through your screen separator. and you keep it capped most of the time, but if you ever accidentally overfill it, you can take the cap off and drain water through the standpipe. So that's one way you can do it. You can also peel up a corner of substrate and the screen layer, and then use like a turkey baster and dig into the drainage layer and suck water out, especially in a really small vivarium, which I've done in nano vivariums. But that's basically all you have to do, and you can leave it there for, you know, the half a dozen years that it takes for the top layer, for the substrate itself, the you know, the planting medium, to need replacement, and then you can take all that out and still reuse the drainage layer. And if it's gotten really gunky from things falling down into it, you could rinse it off first. But there's really not a whole lot to do. Fortunately, it's pretty easy. Okay. And Dustin says, I just started an isopod culture. How do you stop fungal growth? Well, that comes down to a couple of things. One is springtails, and I think somebody mentioned that somewhere. So springtails will really help maintain an isopod culture, kind of keep the fungal growth to a minimum. Also, decent ventilation, cross ventilation is good. Something I'll do with, I use the 6-quart shoebox containers a lot, and I will drill holes on either side of it, so not just on the top lid, but the sides of the container. Drill 1 or 2 small holes on each side, and then cover them up with like chiffon fabric or something else. The weed block that Jamie Bonani was mentioning would be a good thing to use too, to cover them up so that things aren't getting in and out, because fungus gnats will go in and out if you're not careful, and that's a pain. But that cross ventilation will help, and then just maintaining, you want the substrate to be, you know, it needs to be damp but not, well, moist but not damp, or never soaked, but a little bit damp. And that will, those two things, the springtails and the cross ventilation, will help a lot. They won't necessarily eliminate all of it, but they'll certainly help, in my experience. Help a lot. And, all right. Yep, so some other people are saying I would add springtail just like I would. Ben's Aquariums, thanks for joining us. And Robert Gear says, what substrate do you use in your isopod cultures? I use 2 different things currently. One is a homemade mix that with a basis, the base is cocoa fiber, and then I add aspen shavings and leaf litter, especially oak and maple leaf litter, and then pieces of wood and things like that as well. But I'm also using the Lugarti premium isopod and millipede substrate. I'm going to be doing a review on that pretty soon, because that's what I wanted to try it. I found it online and wanted to try it, and I asked if I could get a sample, and they sent me samples. So I'm using that with my Porcelio Hoffman's egg eye, and my Armadillidium Montenegro, and my Orange Vigor isopods, and maybe 1 or 2 other species. I'll have to double check. And they're doing great on that. So the only reason I wouldn't just go wholesale and use that is because it's cheaper to make my own. With as many isopods as I have, with a smaller number of isopods, it probably wouldn't be that much cheaper, but it is for me. So, but those are the 2 that I'm using, and they both work pretty well. Okay, TMPS says, what is the reason for having charcoal in the isopod habitats, by the way? I use it for a couple of reasons. One, because the isopods like to hang around on it, and the springtails like to hang around it and breed on it. So it's great for that. And it also, it can help absorb some toxins, and I'm not sure there are a whole lot of toxins to absorb, but if you have a few pieces of that in your substrate, it can help keep it from going rotten. Not that I've had particular problems with that, but just kind of as a precaution, I guess. But the fact that they like to hang around on it, I think, is the biggest. It's like another piece of bark in there as far as they are concerned. So yeah, the stream is in audio only for now, unfortunately, for whatever reason. Potato Derp says, recently much larger swirly shell snails, oh, that's fun to say, that get like 5 inches or more than the, oh wait, sorry, they're doing some weird things. I don't know what kind these are either, randomly appeared in the tank. They're about 3 centimeters long when fully grown. So are they shaped like a ram's horn? Are they ram's horn snails, maybe? Okay. So, sorry, I'm trying to catch up here. Gordia says so you know about care for marine isopods like the ones that get like 5 inches or more than the Japanese seem to like to keep as pets. I can't find anything about them. Those I haven't kept. I have kept saltwater isopods or marine isopods, but just the small ones, like the ones you get when you put live rock in a marine aquarium. I kept marine aquariums for about 5 years. I started in Hawaii and then kept doing it when we were here. Kept a few interesting things like Hawaiian feather duster worms, and we had a porcula clownfish and a bicolor blenny and a few things, some peppermint shrimp and then several types of soft corals, and of course the amphipods and isopods that come along with the live rock. So I've kept those. I've never kept any of the large species, but that would be fun. Our local aquarium has some. They're huge. They're beautiful. So Dustin says, thank you for addressing my question. I love this channel. Well, thank you. I have a lot of fun with it myself. I'm glad everybody's here. Okay. And Gordia says, like giant isopods, but a bit smaller. Yeah, and I haven't done those either, but I think it'd be fun. And Robert Gear said, this channel's community is great. I think so. I appreciate all of you for being part of that community. You're amazing. Oh, so Lugardi doesn't ship to Canada either. Ah, that makes it tougher. Ben's Aquarium says, I have trumpet snails in my fish tank, and they are great. They bury themselves in the substrate and come out at night mostly and clean the tank. Eat waste food, but they breed fast. They do. This is a really interesting thing, though, about trumpet snails. If you have seen my snail, my Opaiula video, the most recent one, the time-lapse feeding frenzy, the snails in that video are actually Malaysian trumpet snails. They don't look like them because when they live in brackish water, apparently, they totally change. And maybe you've seen it. Maybe you've seen the video already, but they can become extremely dark, they stay smaller, and they don't breed anywhere near as fast. And I think that's partly because the lower quantity of nutrients in that tank. But check that video out if you haven't, because those snails are actually Malaysian trumpet snails, despite the fact that they don't really look like them. And Potato Derp says their shells are shaped like spiral discs, like those funny lollipops. Okay, I wonder if they are ram's horns. I'd have to see them to be sure, but it sounds like they might be. Pet was patted. Okay, Twilly. Yep, we're all here. It's all good. Are you worried about the cat behind you? You shouldn't be, because he doesn't even care about you at all. But I'll move you anyway. Okay, there we go. So, Pat was patted. Says, any other isopod project apart from the high yellow? Well, I did end up breeding some of my own orange Dalmatians. Took some Spanish orange and some Dalmatians, crossed them, got gray isopods in the first generation and some calicos too, and then crossed them again and got some orange Dalmatians, and then I got some orange Dalmatians from another source, so they'll have a really strong bloodline, and I'm working on that project, so that's one that I'm doing. As far as selectively breeding, I may be separating out some completely white isopods from my Dalmatian line too. I'm not sure, I haven't done it yet, but I'm deciding whether I will or not. So Ben's Aquarium says, and I have assassin snails. Oh, me too. I love assassin snails. So Potato Derp says, do you know where these snails could have come from? They didn't come from new plants or anything. Full-grown snails just appeared one day. Now that is weird. So sometimes this will happen. You'll get small snails that come from new plants and you don't see the babies for a while, and then all of a sudden you notice them. That has happened to me a couple times. So that could have happened, but because it's unlikely that any other means of transmission would have occurred unless somebody's playing a joke on you. Dustin says, what are the genetics behind your orange Dalmatians? Are they both recessive? Yes, the Dalmatian trait and the orange trait are both single gene recessive, and so when you cross them, you're not going to get any of either color, but all of the offspring carry it, and so when you cross it, it's about 16% based on, I think it's 16%, based on the Punnett square that show up as orange Dalmatians in the F2 generation, and then you get some normal Dalmatians and some normal oranges, and then you get a whole bunch of gray ones, and I ended up getting some calicos too, because calico genes apparently are all over the place in isopods. But I already had some calicos, so I just threw those calicos in with my other calicos, and it worked. And Robert Gear says, what time? Oh, he's talking to Potato Derp. Okay. And okay, one more. Robert Gear says, also the snail thing happened to my brother's 20 long stream aquarium. Yeah. Yeah, it happens a lot. It's amazing how often that it happens where you just get snail hitchhikers. And not just snail hitchhikers, you can get some pretty funky hitchhikers going on. I was talking about my marine aquariums earlier. We had a marine aquarium, we had a mantis shrimp show up in one of our marine aquariums that we weren't expecting. It was pretty cool. But we couldn't actually end up keeping that one, but it was a funny surprise. That was when we lived in Hawaii, of course. And mantis shrimp can be amazing. It wasn't one of the colorful, like peacock mantis shrimps that you see on the internet. Those are amazing, but this one was still a mantis shrimp of some type. So TMPS says, any suggestions on how to use cuttlebone in the isopod habitat? Well, I will usually just break up a few pieces and throw them in, maybe crush some of it up. It doesn't seem to matter that much. The isopods will nibble on it when they feel like it, no matter what you do with it. So I just throw a few pieces in there because you don't need a lot per isopod habitat. So just toss a few pieces in there and let them do their thing. They will nibble at it as needed. Ben's Aquarium said, I had pest snails in my tank and don't know where they came from. Maybe eggs on the plants. Yeah, that's very likely. That happens a lot. TMPS, and have you tried having live plants in an isopod habitat? Good question. Jay's Crazy Obsessions. Yes, the picture is frozen, unfortunately. Sorry about that. But thanks for joining us. All right, so TMPS says about the live plants in isopod habitat. Well, in a habitat specifically for isopods, no, but in with crested geckos and other geckos and dart frogs with live plants, yes. And most isopods do just fine in with live plants as long as the live plants' needs are taken care of. So if you have the proper substrate with the drainage layer and everything, and you have a good aerobic substrate like ABG mix or one of any herps mixes, something like that, then the plants can do fine in with the isopods. They're going to get enough light, they're going to get all of those things, and they'll do fine. Okay. All right, we are, wow, up to almost 52 minutes. That's amazing. I'm glad everyone has joined us today. I'm going a little bit over. I do need to work on recording videos for the rest of the week, but I really, really appreciate everybody being here. If you've come in and haven't hit that like button yet and you would like to, please do that. And showing that like button some love can tell YouTube that I should do live streams and I want to do them. So, oh, thank you. Some people are hitting it, so that is awesome. I really appreciate that. Sorry it's audio only. Hopefully next time it will not be like that. I'll try to figure out, I'm going to look that up and see if there's anything I can do to prevent that. So, all right, we're going to end it now. Thanks for joining. Just remember that Tuesdays at 5:30 Mountain US time is a good time to try to check if I'm doing a live stream, because I'm going to try to do it. And I better head out, but thanks again for joining us, and you are all awesome. Please stay that way.